Hi, friends. Today I thought I'd spend some time talking to you about attachment styles. I've given this particular chat several times, but I usually am moving my body around, so I'm going to attempt to do it while seated, but I want to try to keep my hands visible for you as a way to demonstrate. So get ready. So, the ideas that I want to share today come from a set of experiments called the strange situation. You can Google that. It's based on the work of Bowlby and Ainsworth, and this is a set of research that culminated with really understanding what attachment theory is about, which is relatively new in the world of psychotherapy. Like, the profession overall is not very old. In particular, the work on attachment really doesn't begin until understanding attachment experiences based on World War II. So this is really recent stuff that we're still trying to figure out. So, as part of the figuring out of attachment, the experiments that were done were called this strange situation. So I'm just gonna give you the lab setting and talk you through that lab setting. It's worth it. I do have slides on this. If it would be helpful for y'all to have me redo this little talk with the slides, I can do that. I'm not quite sure where the slides are landing with you guys, if you like them or not. I have a chart. I have a couple other slides that sort of break it down, but I'm just going to do this direct to camera. And if you would prefer it redone with the slides, let me know. If you want me to attach the slides, let me know. I'd be happy to. Okay, so the experiment of the strange situation is, I'm just going to explain the parts that I know, because there's a part of it that I don't know. I don't know it. Okay, so here's the setup in the lab. So picture a lab room, and it's a lab of parenting. So there's toys and 2 chairs, and usually like a little rug area, and then an exit of a room. So maybe picture like a 20 by 20 room, and there's an exit. And what happens in this experiment, this is a long setup. Once I get to the attachment styles, it'll go quickly. The lab is set up so that, and they do it with the mom, the primary caregiver. In the case of these experiments, it has been done with the mothers. So it's mother and infant, toddler. So in the examples that I've seen of the strange experiment is like a 1-year-old. So, or anywhere from like 9 months to about a year and a half is usually the age range on the experiment. And they're conducting this experiment in this lab. So again, picture this 20 by 20 foot room with a door, an exit door, 2 chairs, and then a set of toys on the ground. And you've got, in the lab, you have a stranger. So that's why it's called the strange experiment. Honestly, I don't know what the stranger's doing. I'm sure there are psychotherapists out there and psychologists out there who know what the stranger is about in the experimentation. I don't know that part. But what the evaluators are doing, right, behind some two-way mirror, is looking at the behavior of the infant. So, I don't know about you, but like, if somebody's watching me and my behavior on a camera in a room, if I'm the mom, I'm going to be the best darn attentive mom ever, right? You're not going to get a sense of what I'm like in my normal milieu, right? You're going to get an experience of me in a lab room. So they don't code on the mom's behavior at all. When they're studying, they're not looking at mom's behavior. They're looking at the baby's behavior. And that's what we're going to get into. What behavior is demonstrated by the baby in this experimentation? So we have this 20 by 20 room with a door, with a stranger, with a mom, and with a child who is, let's say, 9 months to about a year and a half old. And they're doing the experiment. So the experiment goes, you go into the room, toddler is playing with the toys, mom is doing whatever mom is doing, and the stranger is just sitting there in the chair. Again, I don't know what the stranger's doing. Let me know if you know. After a certain amount of time, right? So the baby's engaged in whatever the baby's engaged in, mom's engaged in whatever the mom is engaged in. And on the other side of the two-way mirror, there are people like noting the behavior of the baby. So what they do to conduct the experiment is then mom presumably was sitting in the chair. In the examples I've seen, mom's been sitting in the chair or on the floor with the child. Mom stands up after a given period of time. Let's say 3 minutes, 5 minutes. I actually don't know what the experiment parameters were, but it's the same. It's definitely a scientific study. Mom stands up, leaves the room. Maybe the stranger's there so that the baby's not alone? Not sure. Mom leaves the room and goes outside the door. Now, remember, they aren't coding on what the mom is doing. They're paying attention to what the baby is doing. So we're going to pay attention to what the baby does across each of the different attachment styles. That's how the experiment goes. So what you would see with a securely attached infant is that when mom leaves the room, the baby is in distress. The baby is very unhappy, is trying to figure out where mom went, and may settle back down or may engage the stranger or may re-engage with the toys that they were playing with. But they definitely have an upset about the mom leaving. So then mom goes outside of the room for, again, a preset period of time. I want to say it's like 3 minutes. But again, I haven't looked at the timing specifically. At the end of that period of time, mom comes back in the room and stops, shuts the door and stops right inside the doorway. And now we're watching, what does the baby do? So securely attached infant is making a beeline for mom and is indicating in some way, I'm ready for you to engage with me. Usually it's so this is where I would normally stand up, but uppy, uppy, right? Or whatever their dance is, their particular dance, their particular style of interacting with one another, this re-engagement. They're making a beeline to mom and they're seeking the re-engagement. So let's imagine that this couple of child and mom, the baby, indicates that they want to be picked up. Mom scoops up the baby, comforts that baby, right? I got you. We're fine. You're fine. I got you, right? And the baby experiences mom's regulation, calms themselves. They start to calm down, and then they engage back in with the original task. So let's say before mom left the room, baby was playing with some blocks or a little train. Once the baby's system is regulated, they go back to engaging with those blocks or that little train. So that's what secure attachment looks like. Secure attachment doesn't mean that the child doesn't get upset. The child does get upset, but they can recover. They can come back to their caregiver and get support. So the experience of independence, I can be by myself in this room or with this stranger. That Debbie doesn't know what that's about. But also I could calm back down after I get upset. So secure attachment looks like that. And also okay, we're okay now. Let's move forward. It's got that kind of a vibe. So that's what the experiment looks like with securely attached. So we have another one, which is, you'll see it labeled differently for ease of labeling. Now, this is going to be a little bit different in the literature because there's ambiguity and there's anxious avoidant. Just for simplicity, we'll use the label of anxious attachment for this next example. So same scenario. We've got, the 20 by 20 room. We've got, 2 chairs. We've got a series of, a set of toys and stuff that the kiddo can engage with or everybody can engage with in the room. And at a set period of time, mom stands up, walks across the room, goes outside of the room. What you would observe in that baby, because remember, they're not looking at mom's behavior, they're looking at babe's behavior. So you're looking through the two-way mirror. What do you see with that baby? What you see with that baby with the anxious attachment is that baby did not recognize, you wouldn't be able to observe that the child had recognized that mom left the room. Meaning the baby is focused on whatever they were doing, their toys that were in front of them. They're not indicating any kind of distress about mom leaving the room. If you just observe them visually, I make that point because I have something else to say about that, about the actual disturbance. But visually, what you would observe is no distress on that baby. Mom leaves the room, baby's occupied with whatever they're doing. Mom comes back in the room, baby's occupied with whatever they're doing. No blip of recognition externally. So what does that tell you? An avoidant attachment. This is an avoidant attachment. I have learned, if I'm that baby, I have learned to not show distress. Do not show distress. And there are reasons why that happens, very sad reasons, having to do with, say, some experience that the mom is going through. So let's say the mom has PTSD and is often triggered by the sound of distress, and that triggering makes her unable to attend to the needs of the baby. Our inner selves are quite quick to figure out how to get our needs met if that's what's going on with mom. So if I am the infant with a mom with PTSD that is triggered by my crying, I'm going to learn very quickly to not cry. I'm going to learn very quickly to not show mom that I'm under any distress whatsoever. And this is young. And this is why I make the point of saying these are very young infants that are being studied. And yet it is clear that they have done this dynamic over and over and over again. So mom leaves the room. Baby has learned to not demonstrate any kind of distress. Mom comes back in the room, returns to whatever she was doing. Babe continues to do what they were doing. So there's usually a focus on toys and external, objects that can be manipulated, and very little visual demonstration that the kiddo is in distress. However, in that scientific experiment, you're also measuring, you're wringing out that diaper and testing what's in that. And what you would find in that avoidant attachment baby is that the contents of that diaper would be heavily loaded with cortisol. So cortisol is a stress response. I think it's a hormone. Yeah, a stress response hormone, and it's going to show up. So you know that is a highly distressed baby. Also, they would have a little heart monitor on, and their heart rate would go up. But visually, the scoring people would not notice that. And for the kiddo, they have learned to not show distress so as to not upset the mother, so that the mother can continue to meet their needs. It's a sad story, sure. Yes, it is, but it's a strategy, and it's admirable in a way that we are so determined to get our needs met that even as very small infants, we can learn something like a strategy of not showing distress in order to keep the mom engaged. I mean, it's pretty remarkable how resilient the human being is. So focus on that word strategy, because that's an important part that we're going to come back to later. So secure attachment has a strategy, right? When I'm distressed, I'm going to meet my mom at the door. Mom's going to soothe me and comfort me, and we're going to go back to the way it was before she so rudely left me with this stranger. And with avoidant attachment, my strategy is don't let them see that you're upset. Don't show any outward signs of distress. Strategy. Okay. And both those babies are going to get their needs met with those strategies. A third type of attachment style is called the anxious attachment style. Again, that's just for simplicity. There's actually different languaging around ambiguity and so forth. So the anxious attachment, what you would see in that same experiment, right? So that 20 by 20 foot room, we got the two chairs, we got mom sitting in one chair, the stranger sitting in the other chair, and the baby is hanging out with the toys, doing whatever babies do. Mom stands up, leaves the room, right? For that preset period of time, probably like 3 minutes. The baby, I forgot to make a point. I'm going to go back to it. Remind me. I'll remind myself about seeking proximity. So the baby does not re-engage with anything, doesn't engage with the stranger, doesn't engage with the toys, just stands there, probably crying or wailing or temper tantruming or some kind of outward dramatic expression of dissatisfaction that mom has left the room. When mom comes back in the room, the child will seek proximity. So this is my reminder, come back to the idea of seeking proximity. So in seeking proximity, in the securely attached, and now also in this anxiously attached infant, they're seeking proximity with the caregiver. They're coming close. The avoidant, remember, stayed over with the toys. Didn't recognize that mom had left, didn't recognize that mom had returned. Not so with the anxious and not so with the secure. They seek proximity. Now here's what's different. When they seek proximity and they go to the door and they, do the uppy and mom scoops them up, that baby wants to continue, not wants, has found a strategy of continuing to be in distress. So mom can be trying her best to soothe that baby, calm that baby. I got you. I'm back. We're okay. The stranger's not going to get you. I was always coming back. Mom can try all kinds of things. The anxiously attached baby does not have a strategy of calming down. In fact, the anxiously attached infant has a strategy of staying in distress. I'm still upset. Excuse me. Don't put me down. I don't want to go back to these toys. I'm still upset. This is that continuing, it seems like you would hear people say, yeah, they don't ever want to get comforted. They don't want to calm down. It's actually a strategy that they have learned to not calm down, to stay in distress. And I think the sad example that I can give to you of where this might occur is like a parent with pretty severe depression, and that leads to some irregularity in the way that they might attend to that baby. So if we have a mom with some depression isn't always like a constant. The depression might lift for a while, and then the mom would be very eager to attend to the needs of that baby. And I got you, and I'm on it. Like, I feel better. It almost looks maybe a little bit bipolar, but it's really not. It's just like, pardon my language, the absence of feeling like shit. And so, while I feel a little bit better, of course I love this baby. I want to spend time with this baby. I want to interact with my baby. Let's do all of the things. So, what an infant might develop as a strategy in that case, many other examples that can lead to this, by the way, but in this particular vignette that I'm giving you of the depressed mom, what the strategy of the infant is, while I've got you, I better keep you. You're here attending to this, but also this, also this, also this. And of course, they don't have that language, but they have that feeling inside of them. While I've got you, I better stay. I better keep you. Because if you go away again, if I calm down and you go away, I don't know when you're going to be back to interact with me and to cuddle with me and play with me and kind of share these life experiences with me. So I better keep you here. And what better way to keep you here than to stay in distress? So again, not great, but it's a strategy. So that's an important point. So all of that leads me to the fourth. And the fourth one is called disorganized. And what that means is that this baby has no strategy. They have not found a way to get that caregiver reliably meeting their needs. Not having a strategy of how you're going to get your needs is terrifying inside of a little person's body. It's really a scary situation. So when you see somebody little that's out of control, recognize that is a really scary situation inside of their body. What happens in this same room, right? 20 by 20. Now we're going to talk about disorganized attachment, meaning I don't have a strategy. I have no organization around how to get my needs met. 20 by 20 room. We got the two chairs, the mom, the stranger, the baby, interacting with the toys or with the people in the room, what have you. Mom gets up and leaves, goes out the door. Baby may or may not show distress. The most notable part of what you're going to see on that little two-way mirror that you're looking into this lab is that when mom comes back in the room, the baby will seek proximity to the mom, but actually in many ways they show very confusing behavior. So the example in proximity seeking that's confusing is they will come across the room towards mom, but maybe stop halfway, or they might come up to mom, but then like turn around and expect to be picked up from behind instead of doing this and like looking up, they might just turn around. This is different by every mother-child duo, but I'm gonna just turn around. Or a really common thing to see is like baby seeks proximity. Mom scoops up the baby, and then the baby has like some confusing behavior, like refusing to be comforted. Like, I'm going to stay upset. I'm not going to lean in and get that comfort. I'm not going to settle into the mom. I'm going to sort of stay more rigid, or like that fake, like collapse. It's not fake, like that collapsing of the body. I mean, there's a play version of this where the child just kind of like, you can't see my hand, but like kind of like, how do I do this in the camera? Does this number while you're holding them, and they but you're playing. It's like that, but not in playing. Just like collapse of the of the structure of the body. Just kind of like, I'm not engaged in this at all. You're holding me entirely. You better not let me go. I don't know if this is helping me. Whatever. So that's one that you might see as that sort of collapse. Another that you might see is not only are they more rigid and upright, not sort of leaning in to get that, curled together comfort, they stay more rigid and separated. They also could like put up a little hand. It's funny because it's not funny, it's sad. You'll see them put that little hand up like as a block between you and me. Like, I'm not going to let you comfort me. They put that little hand up in between. So even if they are close, there's a little hand there. If you're curious about it, go watch the video clips of the strange experimentation stuff. It's all over. Everybody who's going through counseling training, master's degree in social work or psychology or counseling is going to watch these videos, and I love them. They're some of my favorite experiments to talk about. So anyway, what we covered today is the strange situation, which is the name of the experimental studies that they did to kind of evolve more of the theory of attachment. There's a lot more to the theory of attachment, but this sort of baseline of how we learn our attachment styles is what we went over today. So we talked about secure attachment, we talked about avoidant attachment, we talked about anxious attachment, and we talked about the lack of strategy. The lack of strategy. These three have a strategy. This fourth one, disorganized attachment, sadly doesn't have a strategy. There's no strategy for that baby to get their needs met. Now, those are templates that are installed very early on. Our attachment style tends to stay with us. It doesn't necessarily mean dire consequences. I myself have an avoidant attachment style, and I'm a fairly functional person. I have a healthy and happy and thriving family. I'm able to attend to my life. There are some behaviors that I demonstrate that you'll be like, oh yeah, that's some avoidant behavior. But it doesn't mean like awful outcomes for me. It just means that that's the way that I begin in relationship tends to be a little bit avoidant. And of course, I'm a person who works on myself, so it's gotten better over my lifetime. Really, the ones that we have to watch out for are those that are in the disorganized, because we're just then sort of stuck in the fear part of our brain, because as I mentioned, it's so distressing to not have a strategy. And when we're stuck in the fear part, and I'm motioning like this because it's down in the lower regions of the brain where we have our fear and threat responses, that doesn't give us, it tends to cause problems because we don't have access to our upper level thinking, our logical, our critical, our vocabulary, our learning ability. We're so stuck in the fear brain that it causes problems down the line with all of our other things that we're trying to do, including relationships, but also on the rest of the development of our thinking and our strategies for life and our ability to think about the future and things like that. So if you are a person who recognizes some of these behaviors of attachment, it's it's worth working on with an attachment clinician, attachment focused kind of work to try to get at that sort of template that was installed in one way, and trying to kind of get that straightened out so that you can have a healthier and happier life, particularly if you're in this disorganized category. So that's what I have for you today on attachment styles. Hope you found it helpful.